Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I'm going to be giving you some small town romance book recommendations, so let's just get right into it. So of course, doing a small town romance rec video, I could not include my favorite book of all time, The Simple Wild by K.E. Tucker. If you have not read this book yet, I don't know what you're waiting for. It is so good. It follows Kala, who finds out that her dad is sick in Alaska, and she's never really met him. Her and her mom both left Alaska when she was like 1, so she doesn't really remember him. She's talked to him on the phone a couple times, but this like random woman calls her one day and is like, hey, your dad's sick, I thought you should know, like maybe you want to come visit him. And Kala has just lost her job in downtown Toronto, and so she's kind of like, okay, well I have nothing really holding me here, maybe I'll just go swing by for like a week and see, you know, how he's doing or whatever. And so she decides she's gonna go, and she goes to this, like, I mean, I don't think it's like a super small town in Alaska, but like any town in Alaska is kind of like a small town, I guess. So she decides she's gonna go see him, and she goes to Alaska, and they're in this like super rural area where, you know, there's like only like 2 houses on the street, and she can run for miles before like running into another person or anything. And she ends up, she's hanging out there, like getting to know her dad, and she meets his sort of like right-hand man, which is Jonah, who actually is the person who flies her over to the town that the dad lives in when she first gets there, and they instantly get off on the wrong foot. He just kind of hates that she's like a big city girl, and she thinks he's super rude, and it's just a really cute enemies to lovers story. And it's super small town. One of my favorite things about this book and like the series as a whole is that it really focuses not only on the romance, but you also sort of get a feel for the town, like you sort of feel like you've been there. And it's just really good. Definitely has like small town vibes, like for sure, because everyone knows everyone, and even like in the neighboring like Alaska cities, they still seem to know like everyone. And so it was just really cool, and like I said, it feels like you've been there, like super small town vibes. Next is About Tomorrow by Abby Glines. This one follows a girl who moves with her boyfriend to this city where her grandmother has passed away and left her a house. And so she decides this college that her boyfriend is going to is about an hour away from this house. So they decide that he's going to go finish his last year in school, and she is going to go live in this grandmother's house and like start fixing it up and whatever while he does that. And so at the beginning they're both staying in the same apartment until she can get all her stuff moved into the grandmother's house. So they're both living in this little apartment, and this guy has a roommate in the apartment, and she ends up finding out that I think it's the roommate's cousin is this guy that she used to hang out with every summer when she was a kid, when she would visit her grandmother. And obviously things kind of go from there, but it is super like small town. Like this guy shows up at her house to bring her like firewood, like they're like in the woods, like it's just definitely got those small town vibes. I feel like any Abby Glines book really has small town vibes. I don't think she's written anything other than maybe her one Regency book that she wrote. I think everything else is small town, and so like if you're ever looking for that, she is really good for that trope. Next, I feel like this is the most popular one, is It Happened One Summer by Tessa Bailey. I feel like everyone's talked about this book, super hyped last year. And this one follows a rich girl who ends up sort of being sent to, very similar to kind of The Simple Wild, she gets sent though to this town where she was born that she's never been, and she kind of has to run this bar that her birth father owns that she didn't really know about. And she shows up, and all these townspeople are kind of like sitting in the bar, and they're like all annoyed that this rich girl thinks she's just gonna show up and like run the bar that they've been running themselves for years. And it's definitely got the small town. The main guy in this book is a fisherman. It's super like small town. I really love this one. I know a lot of people really like this one this year. It's definitely got the grumpy sunshine trope in it as well, so if you like that one, you probably like this as well. Next is Archer's Voice by Mia Sheridan, which again is one of my favorite books of all time. And this one follows Bree, who moves to this super tiny town, and she just sort of figures like it's gonna be like quiet, she can get away from like the things in her life that she's trying to get away from, and she's super excited. She moves into this house, and she goes grocery shopping the first day and ends up running into this guy in the parking lot, and he just doesn't say anything to her after he bumps into her, and she's kind of offended and thinks he's super rude because he just ignores her and walks away. So she starts asking about him around town, and everyone's like, no, that's Archer, he's such a loner, like, don't talk to him, and whatever, and they're kind of all like warning her off of him, but she's just getting like more and more interested in him, and she starts riding her bike to the beach every day, and one of the days she goes, her dog gets loose and ends up in Archer's yard, and so she's kind of forced to meet him again, and this time she's kind of a little bit more interested in getting to know him and seeing why like everyone is warning her off of him and stuff. So it goes from there. This one is super, super sweet. Definitely like small town for sure. Everyone like knows about Archer and everyone's like talking about him. He's just kind of like the reclusive like small town dude. And I just really, really love this one, obviously. Next is another Mia Sheridan book. I don't know if all her books are small town, but Most of All You is the next one. And these are the only two I've read by her, so that's why I'm not sure. But this one is also super small town. This one follows a boy who was kidnapped as a kid and is kind of struggling with getting close to people because of it. Like, he doesn't think that he could have a girlfriend because when people touch him, he kind of freaks out. And so he thinks he's going to hire a stripper to help him sort of overcome his issues. And he meets this girl who is a stripper at the local strip club, and he offers to pay her like on the side if she like helps him get over his issues. And she's like, no, like, I don't think we should do that, like, that's a bad idea, whatever. But then he offers her like a ton of money, and she's like, oh, maybe. And it sort of goes from there. But this is such a small town book. This has a scene towards the end of it where they actually go to like a fall festival that I swear was like straight out of Gilmore Girls. Like, it was so like small town, cutesy, like hayride, like all of that going on. Like, I just really, really love this one. And again, like I said, super small town vibes with this one. Next is Bittersweet by Serena Bowen. This one is part of the True North series. It's the first book. I've only read the first book so far, but the entire series is small town romances. So if you really love small town romances, you'll probably love this series. And there's a ton of books in it. I think there's at least 9, and they all follow a different couple in this small town. And there's also like a spin-off series. I don't know if it's a series, but there's a bunch of other authors that have written spin-offs of this series that all take place in the same world that Serena Bowen kind of like publishes, I guess. And so there's all of those two. I think those are all MM, those other ones, but this series I don't believe has any MM in it. I'm not 100% sure because, like I said, I've only read the first one. But this one follows a girl who is working at this like restaurant, and to sort of save her job, her boss sends her to the farms where they get their produce and stuff to try and negotiate these deals. But he sends her in with this list that is like really lowballing all of these farmers, and she sort of is like, okay, I'll go in and get all these things for these prices, like it'll be so easy. And she goes, and one of the farms she ends up running into a guy that she went to college with, and he is now running this like apple orchard farm thing because his dad has passed, and he is taking care of that. And she sort of quickly realizes that like her boss has sent her these like lowball offers and stuff, and she's kind of working with these farmers and seeing what they do and different things. So it's definitely like very, very small town, like, you know, literally on a farm, like super, super small town, and just like a really good book too. Like, I definitely want to continue on with this series. Like I said, there's a ton of them, so if you like small town romances, you'll probably like all of the books in this series. Next is Wolf Song by TJ Klune. I don't talk about this book that often. I don't know why, but this is an MM werewolf romance, and it follows a boy who lives on the street, and these new neighbors move in one day, and like the one kid is just like drawn to him, even though this kid is like 10 and he is like 16, I think, at the time, or something like that. And they're just sort of drawn to each other, and they hang out for years and years before they kind of start to develop a relationship, I guess. And it's just like a really sweet book. It is very long, and it is the first one in a series, so like, be warned. But it is, I believe they're all standalones, so there is this, like, you could just read the first one. And so this one, like I said, very small town. There's only like the 2 houses on the street, I think. Like, they only talk about these 2 houses. It's super, super small town, werewolves, MM, really good book. Next is Broken by Lauren Lane, and I loved this book so much. This book actually got me out of a reading slump, which I was super excited about. And this one follows a girl who decides to drop out of college, and her parents are sort of like, okay, you can volunteer to take care of this like wounded veteran. And she's like, okay, because she sort of planned on doing some kind of volunteer thing, but this wasn't exactly what she had in mind. And so they have like set her up through like a friend of a friend or whatever with this guy, and she thinks she's gonna go out to this house and take care of like a grumpy old man and whatever. And she shows up, and it turns out the guy is like 23, I think, in the book. And she's kind of surprised that he's obviously not an old man, and they sort of end up living together, and there's sort of a reason why he can't fire her, even though he's fired every other like person his dad has tried to hire for him. And so it's sort of got like forced proximity where they're like both living in this house together, and they're kind of stuck with each other even though they're both getting on each other's nerves. And it's just really, really good. It's definitely small town. He has like moved to like the middle of nowhere and like just hides out in his house and never goes out anywhere, and that's just like what he wants to do because he thinks everyone's going to talk about him and stuff because he has these scars on his face and things. And it's just a really, really good book. It reminded me a lot of Archer's Voice in that it's like the guy that's like super reclusive in the small town and the girl who kind of brings him out of that. And I just really, really like this one as well. Like I said, it got me out of a reading slump, which was really exciting. And lastly was A Good Girl Complex by Elle Kennedy. I feel like this book has a lot of the small town vibes in it. It is Elle Kennedy's newest book, if you haven't heard of it. It follows a like really rich girl who is already running like a multi-million-dollar business, but her parents tell her she has to go to college. So she goes to this college in this small town where this boy lives who is like local to the area, and he sort of figures he's never going to go to college. He's working in his uncle's construction business, and he's just kind of living his life. And then he's bartending on the side also at the beginning, and he ends up getting fired because this frat guy gets into like a fight with him and gets him fired. So he decides to like get back at this frat guy. He is going to steal his girlfriend, which is the girl running the multi-million-dollar business already. And obviously real feelings start to happen there. This one was definite like small town, like they all hang out around like campfires, and it's got the whole like small town vibes, the construction workers, the like calling your friends when you need help kind of thing. Like it's got that whole vibe going on to it with the college thing, which I kind of liked because there aren't that many like small town college books, I feel like, but I just really liked that aspect of this book. There's also like a like carnival sort of scene in this book, which I really, really love as well. Like I love a good like state fair kind of scene in a romance book, and this one had that, so I was really excited about that. Definitely really liked this one as well. And so those are all my small town romance recs for you today. If you have any other ones that I didn't mention, feel free to leave them in the comments and I will absolutely check them out. But that is all for today. Thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button down below. I do new book videos every single week, and I'll see you next time.